For a couple more people to get in here. All right, I'm live. Oh yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna wait for a couple more people to get in here. Um, as you can see by the title, I hope the title is there somewhere. This is a recap of Diddy's sentencing hearing today. This is a recap of Diddy's sentencing hearing. Okay. So I'm gonna wait for like maybe another 10 seconds or so, and then I'm gonna get started. I'm live on Facebook, and I'm live on YouTube, and I'm live over here on TikTok. Okay. What a day today was. It was a very exhausting day, and I'm glad it's over. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So today's hearing started at around 10 o'clock, a little bit after 10 o'clock. And I couldn't help but notice how jam-packed it was today. I was there at the same courthouse last week for the acquittal hearing, and it was not it was about 4 times as crowded today, maybe even more. There were several overflow rooms. Usually there's only about maybe 2 overflow rooms. Today they had like 4 overflow rooms. So there were a ton of people that showed up today for this sentencing hearing. No matter how you feel about Diddy, he is absolute, like, to the amount of excitement that was at that courthouse today was definitely a testament as to how influential he is. Again, whether you like him or not, there were people there from Sweden. I was on the line getting ready to go into the courtroom, and there were people who traveled from Sweden, okay, to see this. Anyway, so we're going to get started right now. This is a little bit after 10. Like I said, the hearing was just a little bit late. Also, really quickly, we're going to be here just for a little while. I'm going to definitely go in depth. So just giving you a warning from now, if this is your sort of thing, you'll love it. If it's not, then okay. So in the pre-sentencing filing, the defense attorneys submitted about 70 letters from family, friends, former business associates, all kinds of people wrote, complimentary letters for Diddy supporting him. And it was really interesting because, there was a running theme that nobody was supportive of him. I don't know if we want to call it a running theme. It just really didn't seem like people were very supportive of him. But at the end, in the 11th hour, there were a lot of people that wrote letters. Obviously, his children wrote letters. His mom, wrote a letter. People in the industry, Carl Thomas wrote a letter. Young Miami wrote a letter. Stevie J wrote a letter. A ton of people wrote letters. So the judge, let us know that he read everything. He read every letter. When he came in, he was wearing, regular street clothes. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a thing that a huge thing, because initially the judge wasn't going to let him wear his street clothes, but he decided to let him wear them today. Now, last week for the hearing, he had on prison scrubs, and it just made him look totally like worse. But he looked, better today. He looked presentable. His hair is about 88% gray. He has a thick beard. It's full of gray hair, but that's basically how he was looking for the whole trial. When he came in, he did his usual greetings, to the family and everything. And, he always hugs his attorneys. Like I said, the judge said that he received a lot of paperwork. He read everything. He appreciates everything. Something I found interesting was Mia was supposed to actually give a victim impact statement, but like right before everything was about to start, we found out that she wasn't going to give that impact statement. I don't know if you guys remember who Mia was. She was someone who worked at Bad Boy, and she went under a pseudonym. I'm still not going to put her real name or whatever, but everybody knows who it is by now. Okay. So she was supposed to give it. I personally didn't think that it was really necessary for her to give any type of impact statement. I really did not. I didn't find her to be a very strong witness. I'm not saying I didn't believe her, but I personally didn't find her to be a very, very strong witness. And I'm not sure. He said sentencing was a slap on the wrist. A lot of people are saying that. Um, so I'm not sure if she really what difference she would have made, so, but basically they decided not to put her up there. Um, there was a letter that the defense submitted regarding Mia and their objection to her giving this statement, and the judge basically chided the defense or chastised the defense and said that the tone of the letter was inappropriate. Okay, and basically the lawyers called her a liar, and it's just like every word that came out of her mouth was a lie during the court in this case and stuff like that. Everything that came out of her mouth was a lie, and they were really, really aggressive in this letter. So Judge Subramanian said that it was inappropriate. So, but again, I didn't think it was going to make much of a difference. I didn't think that she needed to get up there and say anything at all anyway. So, you know, so the defense basically told the judge that they want to have several people make statements, and the prosecution said that it was ironic for the defense to not want Mia to speak, and they accused the defense of trying to drown out the victim statement with a bunch of positive, statements and stuff like that from Diddy's, friends and loved ones and stuff like that. So we are moving forward now, and something interesting that happened in the courtroom. So when you go into the I was in an overflow room, okay? I wasn't in the main courtroom this time. So when you're in the overflow room, you have like benches, right? Maybe about 8 rows of benches. Then there's like a partition, like a wooden thing, right? Where there's a door for you to go through. And there are a few tables with monitors there. Now, I had never seen anyone sitting at any of those tables the entire time I went to. Oh, please like this, by the way. Like the video, like this on TikTok if you're watching. Please heart it or like it, please. Okay, and share it, please. Also on over here on YouTube and Facebook, you guys can please just like and share as well. I appreciate it. And if you're not following me, please follow me. Appreciate it. All right. So yeah, I'd never seen anybody sit at those tables. Okay. Now, when I was in the main courtroom, those tables that are in that same position, because all the courtrooms have the same layout. So the people who are in that courtroom, in the main courtroom, that are sitting there with the monitors are lawyers and interns and, those people that, work at the law firm, whatever, or at the law firms or whatever. But when you're in the overflow room, those tables that have the monitors, no one's sitting there. So when I got into the courtroom today, people were sitting at at those tables, looking at the monitors like real close. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And all I could think of was after the break, I'm going to be sitting at one of those tables. Child, don't you know? One of the court officers whispered to another court officer, and he was basically like, look, y'all got to get them out of there. Okay. So that's what ended up happening. They ended up having to leave and, come and sit in the gallery with the rest of the people. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, so the judge basically started to give instructions on what was allowed during these statements. And something that's very important, and I've been trying to explain to people for weeks and months now, is, when a judge is determining a sentence to give someone, even testimony that, any prior testimony he can take any of that into consideration when he's deciding what type of sentence to impose. So this is basically what he told everybody. Okay. Acquitted conduct can be referenced. All right. The judge also noted that Diddy denied guilt by saying that he paid for time and not sex, and he didn't express remorse for the charges that he was convicted on. Now, another thing that I found to be interesting is, obviously, you guys know that his appellate. You okay in there? Oh, never mind. Okay. I found it interesting that his appellate lawyer was there for the entire time from beginning to end. Okay. Her name is Alexandra Shapiro. And she basically, of course, she spoke up and was just like, look, his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights would be violated if prejudicial evidence is used against him at the sentencing. So she's been interjecting, she's been making her presence known, she's been, doing objections and putting things on the record, because needless to say, first thing Monday morning, I'm sure they're going to go in and try to appeal. Okay. So basically, your Fifth Amendment right is for you can't be tried twice for the same thing, right? And then the Sixth Amendment is guarantees a fair and speedy trial. So those are the two things she wanted on the record. So all that stuff that she talked about during the trial, and she's going to bring all that stuff up when it comes down to things. And I think he has a pretty strong case for appeal. That's just my opinion. Okay, so Slavic, who's one of the prosecutors, made it clear that she wants the judge to treat his conviction as more of a violent situation as opposed to trafficking. And basically, it was saying that Cassie and Jane were victims, and so on and so forth. Okay. They also brought up when the fact that Diddy would often threaten to release videos or threaten to take away things from the victims, such as the cell phone, or when Jane's apartment, or her home rather, if she didn't do these freak offs, he would stop paying her rent, that sort of thing. Okay. All right. So the judge talks to Diddy and asks him if he was able to look over the pre-sentencing report that he signed and stuff like that. And it wasn't, clearly explained to him. And he said yes. And they talked about what his offense level was, because remember, there's a probation report as well. And they considered his offense level to be a 27. All right. Now, with a 27 offense level, right? What the prosecution was saying that he should receive between 70 and 87 months. I mean, the probation report is suggesting for him to receive between 70 and 87 months. Now, they're getting ready to so really quickly, the prosecutor asked Judge Subramanian if she would be able to respond after the defense makes their remarks, and he said yes. So basically, after the defense gets up there and says all the complimentary things and shows all this stuff, she wanted to make sure that she can kind of get up and just rip everything down that they said. Okay. She said that the law requires the court to consider all info that's available, not just about the FOs or the SEX. She said that the victims experienced real trauma, and Diddy didn't need money. His currency was control. And they were asking for 135 months in prison. And the sentence reflects other cases. She also said that the government isn't asking for 135 months to split the baby, basically splitting the baby as it related to the probation report or whatever. She's saying that they're requesting this because they feel like that is the amount of time that he deserves. Okay. They also talked about his behavior, and the things that he did wasn't just like a rock and roll lifestyle. His behavior, she said his behavior was terrible, and not just about transportation, for the prostitution, right? It was about that as well as violence. She said Cassie and Jane and others were affected by his violence, right? And the defendant doesn't understand the gravity of his conduct. She said his respect for the law is lip service. Okay, he doesn't have any respect for the law, and basically trying to say that his apologies and stuff like that, he's not being truthful. He really doesn't care. This is what they're saying. And this was the part that gagged everybody. I don't know if you guys already saw this. Some of you probably have already. But this is where she said that she does not, the reason why he doesn't understand the gravity of his conduct and all that stuff is because he booked speaking engagements for next week in Miami. And she said this is a tremendous level of hubris. Okay. Now we'll get into a little bit later. We'll get into, oh, thank you, Abby. We'll get into a little bit later about these speaking engagements and stuff like that, and how the defense tried to clean it up a little bit. But I'm going to tell you something right now. That was really, to me, one of the pivotal moments during this sentencing hearing. I don't care how you slice it, booking any type of speaking engagement at all next week or making plans to do anything is insane. That was just, there was an audible gasp in the courtroom. Even people who are pro, and there were lots of pro Diddy people in the court throughout this entire thing, a tremendous amount of supporters, even they were gagged, like, why would he do that? I'm going to say something really quickly and I'm going to proceed. How much time did he got? He got 50 months. So I believe that a lot of the things that came out, and some of the things that he's done, are a direct result of his legal team gassing him. Okay, who would approve any type of speaking engagement or any type of plan that's public record for next week? Who would do that? Who would approve that? Who would even think that that's a good idea? And this is the thing. Even when I was talking to somebody about this earlier, even when he was acquitted on the RICO charges and stuff like that, yes, he's going to get time served. Even when he was acquitted of that and he fell to the ground, right? And he was like so relieved, it was giving that he really thought that was it. That was the end of it. And the only people that I have to blame for that are his attorneys. His attorneys should have let him know that it doesn't matter what charges you're found guilty on, you're nowhere near out of the woods at all, because any of those convictions come with serious, they're all felonies. Okay, the serious stuff would have landed him in jail forever. But even those two Mann Act convictions, and we can discuss whether the Mann Act is an antiquated thing, and that there's a very relevant argument to have there. But in right now, in present day, those are still serious crimes. You understand what I'm saying? So, yeah. And then he said I'm coming home. How you're not coming home? And it's like it doesn't look like you're remorseful. But again, I'm not sure how much of that is his fault, because he's going by what his legal team is saying to him. And people need to also understand that a lot of the time, these lawyers kind of like know what time it is, and they'll still gas you because they want your money. They want your money. They're not going to say, hey, I don't know if I can get you home. They're going to be like, no, I got you. We're going to get you out of here. And, they want your money. And we're not dealing with, a traffic court lawyer that you give them $160 and, we're dealing with millions and millions of dollars. So they're going to say whatever they need to say to get your money. Okay. So that I just thought that was an interesting thing that happened there with that speaking engagement. That wasn't a good look. But anyway, all right. So Slavic went on to say that Diddy engaged in these FOs for 15 years, from 2009 to 2024, and they were, I'm going to call it the V word, but VIOLENT. I don't want to get flagged, okay? But when I say the V word, that's what that means, okay? She also said that he knew it was illegal and did it over and over again, and there must be consequences for that. She said that the most spectacular aspect of everything was the V word, okay? Cassie, she also talked about Cassie having OD while she was in the middle of one of these FOs, okay? And remember, he told her, basically, all right, get back in there and do what you got to do. Continue. Yeah. I listen, it's a scam. Okay. Now don't get me wrong. I think that the lawyers did a great job, because remember, at the beginning of this situation, it was definitely looking like he was going to be going away forever. It looked like that. So they were able to get him acquitted of the more serious charges. And even now, with the sentence that he got, I feel like it was on the low end. Okay. So that they did a good job ultimately, but they definitely, yes, and his lawyers, Cecile, were definitely outrageous. Okay. But one more point I want to make. We understand, you know, how a narcissistic type of personality works. Okay. Um, I think that it would also be a challenge for his lawyers to go to him and say, hey, look, this is such and such. Like, they're going to tell him what they feel like he wants to hear. You understand what I'm saying? So, did they even come out and speak to the public? No, they did not. And I was so disgusted about that on both sides. Like, why wouldn't the prosecution or the defense come out and talk to the public? Who does that? I don't know. I don't know. It's a disgrace to the victims who suffered. I don't know why they didn't come out and, I mean, the prosecution, I guess maybe they wanted more time. Were they upset that they didn't get more time? I mean, y'all got the conviction, right? I mean, you didn't want to come out and talk to the public. That was so strange. And people were just really out there waiting. Like, we were all out there waiting to hear, I don't know. I guess they'll make the rounds, they'll do interviews or whatever. So let me continue here. So yeah, so she talked about Cassie ODing during the FO, and she also talked about Cassie, being physically harmed by him while an escort waited in the other room, and we, heard about that testimony, right? Okay, so they talked about other cases where defendants were physically and emotionally harmed with Mann Act cases. Now, this is the thing. They went into a lot of different, I'm trying to get comfortable here. I'm trying not to show the bottom part of me because, like, the shirt is good, but I'm wearing like house shorts. So, like, I feel like I'm in, you know how you have like a meeting at a work meeting or whatever, and the bottom part of you, it looks crazy, but the top part is decent. Like, that's where I'm at right now. So I'm trying to like cover that, but my knee is like not comfortable. But anyway, all right. So they were talking about other cases where there was a significant time given with the Mann Act. All right. So one of the defendants that was convicted of the Mann Act was sentenced to 60 months. Okay. And they talked about this particular defendant love bombing his victims and was in a relationship with one of the victims. And the victim, he physically harmed the victim and stuff like that. And the judge so the guideline was 21 to 27 months. The judge took that into consideration and still gave the defendant 7 years. Okay. And even though the guideline was 21 to 27 months, he still gave him the 60 months. And Judge Subramanian, okay, and I told people all the time, they talk about Judge Subramanian, Zoom meeting, right, exactly. Hi, Tanya. So they talk about Judge Subramanian not being fair. He was. Just because you didn't get a certain outcome does not mean that man was not fair. He was very fair throughout the trial. He was fair now. And one thing about him, he's very thorough. He reads everything. So everything she was talking about, he went in and he would interject, and it was clear that he not only knew what she was talking about, but was well versed in each one of these each precedent he was well versed in. And he even told her, he said, well, there was a prior criminal activity in Cuba. So that also weighed on that particular judge's decision to give him the 7 years. So Diddy doesn't have a prior conviction. Okay. He should have went with the guideline. You think he wasn't fair? Anyway, I'll explain what he did in Cuba. That's a lie. Do you know what I'm talking about right now? Did you just join me? If you just now joining me, then it's going to seem like I'm talking about Diddy. I'm not. Okay. I'm not. So I hope people aren't just coming in thinking that I'm talking about Diddy. I'm talking about another case right now. So just sit and listen and watch, okay? Just sit and listen and watch and don't assume if you don't know. Anyway, anyway, so like I said, the judge said that there was a prior criminal activity in Cuba. So that's what weighed on his decision. So I thought that that was interesting because, he didn't just let that slide. Okay. He didn't just let that slide. Um, Now, Slavic came back and said that even cases that didn't involve, the V word, right, are met with significant jail time. Um, but the judge, you know, brought it up again and was basically like, you are continuing to bring up previous defendants who have had a prior criminal history. And, this particular defendant does not. No convictions. Okay. Um, Slavic says that Mann Act convictions that include, uh, violence or threats routinely get significant sentences. She said that there was a considerable amount of harm to the victims, and she said that the abuse of Cassie was pervasive, and she went into, exactly what he did to physically assault her. I don't want to say certain words to trigger it, but we already saw the video and stuff like that. So she basically talked about the video, and she said that the hotel video was just one of many instances. Okay, and she said that that particular thing happened in a public place. Imagine what happened behind closed doors. Okay. And she brought up the incident that happened with Jane just over a year ago. And he knew that he was under federal investigation and still was, physical with her. And she said that the central theme of the defense was that he leaned into DV. And that's something else that I said was just not smart. Okay. When Mark Agnafilo was giving his closing argument, he leaned into it like it wasn't really a big deal. It was like, oh, he was just a bad boyfriend, blah, 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 and was very flippant about the DV, which I thought was a horrible idea. And again, when the judge made his decision not to grant him bond that day, remember that? And the judge said, you full-throatedly admitted that he was like this, right? And he said, domestic, DV is V, right? The fact that it happened between two people who are, having relations with each other doesn't mean that it's not, it's not bad. It's still terrible, right? So this is what Slavic is talking about. And she's saying that they leaned into it like it just really wasn't a big deal. She said that the physical, abuse wasn't the only thing. She said the FOs were degrading and he subjected them to a significant risk to their health. She said that Cassie was, urinated on, right? And she had countless UTIs and stuff like that. And we remember that she testified to, constantly having a UTI and that sort of thing, right? She said that Cassie still has, nightmares and flashbacks in addition to permanent scars on her body. And, they brought up the gash in her eye and, bruising and all the stuff that we saw. And that she wanted to unalive herself. Okay. Multiple witnesses testified about the, things that he did. And she talked about Mia, the same one who they didn't want to talk today, that the defense didn't want to give her statement today. They brought up Mia. They brought up Deontay Nash and Capricorn Clark. And she said that when Capricorn Clark spoke up, she was essentially blacklisted. And the defendant claims that he's moved on, yet the victims are still picking up pieces. This is what Slavic says. And she says that the defendant still hasn't adequately acknowledged his culpability. He downplayed what happened, claiming it was rare. And she said that we heard of at least 12 instances during the testimony. And this is just what, people testified to. And she said that there's no doubt that there were more instances that we just didn't hear about. Okay. when these people ask to co-host from like India, what do they think is going to happen? Like, what are we going to talk about? Okay. So the defense, she said the defense tried to say that it was a mutually toxic situation. Like, the two of them were just, again, with this rock and roll type of relationship. And, she said, look, several images of bruising and injuries we saw of Cassie and didn't see any injuries on Diddy, right? And she said that this is essentially, victim blaming everything else but himself. And she said that he acts like he was the victim. She said that Jane expressed multiple times that she didn't want to engage in hotel nights. And she said that Diddy has not fully accepted responsibility. She said that he claims that he paid for time and not for, you know, relations, like actual, sex. And she said that that is a ridiculous notion. He knew what he was doing was wrong, which is why he would ask the escorts if they were law enforcement, and he instructed Cassie to do the same. She said that Diddy will do it again if he's released. And the last physical altercation he had with Jane was when he was 54 years old. P, prostitution. Okay. What did I write here? Okay. So she talked about that, right? The P word. And she said that that was one thing, but, substances, physical abuse, and the RAPE were secondary effects of what he was convicted on, which is those 2 Mann Act charges. Okay. The only way to encourage victims to come forward, especially if the perpetrator is wealthy, powerful, or well connected, etc., is to impose a significant sentence. Encourage victims to trust the criminal justice system. All right. So now Driscoll, who is one of the attorneys for Diddy, he gets up and he speaks and he talks about. Now I'm going to tell you how what this was giving to me. Okay. He talked about defendants who did things that were a lot more heinous than what Diddy is accused of, that received less time than what the prosecution is asking for. Okay. So he talked about just a lot of crazy things that some of these men did. Okay. So one of the points that he made is that Diddy didn't make any money from this trafficking situation. He didn't make any money from it. Okay. He also said that the median time for what he's accused of is around 15 months. He referenced multiple cases where pimps trafficked victims for multiple years and only served a small amount of time. For cases that mirror what Diddy is charged with, they got about 6 months. One PIMP told a victim, "I meant what I said about making a mold of your PUSSY. The rest of you isn't worth SHIT." This is one of the messages that the PIMP sent to a woman who was working. Okay. And he said, no text between Diddy and anyone is as bad as that. I was thinking to myself, like, why would you say that? Like, I just didn't feel like it was giving what he thought it gave. Okay. Anyway, let me continue. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. So he said most PIMPs don't use substances. They weaponize them, right? So they usually are not the ones who are out here getting high. They'll ply their, the girls with stuff so they will continue to work and stuff like that. What's going on in this chat? I could just imagine, Joe. One thing I know, all you TikTok people love business. Okay. Like you said, and this person here, and Vicky said, and here you are. Like, it was so funny because somebody said in my live earlier when I was on TikTok, they were like, yeah, TikTok proves that you don't need to be hearing everybody's opinion. And I was thinking, like, but you literally just commented your opinion. Anyway, child, there's nothing that anybody could say to me in this chat or at any time that's going to make me not do what I'm doing. So thank you for the engagement. But anyway, child. Um, so yeah. So another thing that he brought up, he said one case involved a 14-year-old who was trafficked, right, to a John who she engaged in fellatio with, and that the John photographed it, and that John only received 24 months. It was half of what was recommended. The reason why I say I didn't feel like this was giving what they thought it was going to give is because, like, that's awful. Like, he should have gotten more. You understand what I'm saying? Like, oh, he basically, he abused a child and he only got this. What? Like, no, like that, he shouldn't have gotten that. He should have gotten a lot more. And that, what does that mean? I just thought that was such a weird comparison to make. But anyway, and Driscoll says everyone in the court would agree that the behavior was more heinous than what happened here. Okay, 14 months is the only fair sentence. This is what Driscoll said. Okay, so now Nicole Westmoreland is one of Diddy's lawyers, right? She is, times have changed. The victim is now recognized. What was his reaction to the sentence? I'm going to get to that, but basically, he wasn't, like, no one was surprised. Okay, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later. Now, Nicole Westmoreland is one of Diddy's attorneys. She's the black lady, right? She's very, very short. She has really long hair, but she's very short. I didn't realize she was so short. She's very, very short. Okay. But she's brilliant. So she came up to speak, and she basically wanted to focus on two components of his life. The commitment made at MDC and contributions he's made to help others. Okay. She said that Diddy has touched many lives over the course of his life and career, and Combs started his own record label at a time that it was very challenging. His accomplishments proved you don't have to be signed to a label. You can be the label. This changed the industry and culture. People realized that if he could do it, they could do it too. And he spent many years in the industry helping people. When he entered into the fashion industry, there weren't a lot of black clothing lines. He was smart enough to market his clothing line and make it successful. And he broke barriers, and he spent time helping others to create their own clothing lines. His clothing line wasn't just traditional streetwear. It was upscale for all people, and it brought unity and inspired trends. This is when I realized that she was actually crying. Okay. Oh my God. You said I was literally, you see, I just brought that up. Listen to me. She was crying real tears. She was like having a hard time getting through this testimony here. And when we heard the sniffles, we all kind of like, we were all taking notes, and we all like looked at each other like, is she crying? And somebody was like, she's crying. But I'm going to tell you the reason why I feel like some of that emotion might be a little genuine. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because there was another time during the Mark Agnafillo's closing argument where he started to cry, but that seemed super disingenuous. Okay, it did not seem like he was being genuine at all. That was like a fake cry. Okay, but this one seemed kind of genuine, and I'm gonna tell you the reason why I believe that she, did feel a little bit like that. So she goes on to talk about revolt, and Combs's vision was to show his community that they were important. Combs didn't just sit around and enjoy success. He made sure that he helped others in the community, and he spent his life trying to break the chains of systemic racism. When he opened 3 charter schools, they were in poverty-stricken neighborhoods, and these schools were of high quality, and they also had college preparatory courses and stuff like that, and they were excellence driven. And he realized that the youth are our future leaders. He's employed people of all nationalities and genders. His companies were very diverse. She said it goes so much deeper for Mr. Combs because he's really inspired communities. Vote or die encourage minorities and youth to vote. I'm sure you guys all remember the vote or die situation. That was extremely instrumental. Okay. Did the judge take a recess after all the closing arguments by both sides, or did the judge go straight into sentencing? No, he took a little bit of a recess, took a little bit of a break. Very brief break though. I didn't think it was going to end today. I thought it was going to carry over into Monday. Mr. Combs, personally, okay, so this is where we get into their history, because there is a bit of a history there with Nicole Westmoreland and Diddy. Okay, so she said, Mr. Combs personally inspired me, and she gets very, very choked up right here. And she says, 8 years ago, I was a lawyer trying to find my way. And she said, one of her things that she really wanted to focus on was mass incarceration in the Black community. And she actually ran into him at a function where he was a speaker. And he said in a speech, don't be afraid to, to have dreams. Just don't forget to wake up and put actions behind your dreams. Don't be afraid to help others. And that changed her life. Okay. And she actually spoke with him during this thing or whatever. So that was the little history that they had. And she said that Mr. Combs isn't larger than life. He's just a man who's made mistakes. He actually said that later on as well. And she said, we all have. How many of us can say that we've spent decades trying to help others? This is an important aspect of his life, and it wouldn't be fair for the court to take that away from him. She said he's lost his way, but he's also been in a jail cell and is remorseful. And she said he gets it, simply stated. Okay, this is what she said. At MDC, so many inmates would approach him and ask how he was so successful. And she said that's how Free Game with Diddy was born. He insisted everyone be in the class together. So there were, I guess, the Bloods and the Crips, and they had beef with each other. And he came up with this course, Free Game with Diddy. I'm sure you guys heard about the course. And he said that one of the stipulations for these alleged gang members that are there, that are locked up with him, if they wanted to be, to participate in the course, they had to all do it together. So basically what they're trying to say was, he had his own little West Side Story, and it was, the Jets and the other one, and and they all came together. Let me not make light of the situation. This is what they said, that he, was able to foster an environment where, sworn enemies came together, and they have not had any type of altercation since. This is the testimony that was given today. I don't know if that's true, but this is what they said. Okay. Every civil servant on the planet can say they've spent years in service to others. Absolutely. Lady T says, how long did he get? He got 50 months. Okay. And he's going to get time served. He started the 6-week course on business skills. This has never happened at MDC, ever. Even staff sat through the class, and they said it was excellent. So many were learning new skills. There were a lot of inmates who submitted glowing letters about the course, by the way. Okay. Even a mother of an inmate said it was the first time she's seen her son so hopeful in years. And it makes no sense to warehouse him. Okay. And that was the end of Nicole Westmoreland's thing. My cat is over here. Please go over here. So now Brian Steele gets up and he starts to talk. And he's like, hey, is it possible for the children to address the court? And the judge says yes. Okay. So I'm not even going to lie to you. This particular part of the hearing was extremely sad. And I mean, I guess you could imagine how sad it was. Okay. Diddy was definitely very, very emotional throughout this entire thing. So they all approach the podium, and Quincy, he's the one who speaks first. And he says, He thanks the court for allowing him to speak and stuff like that. And he basically says, I'm Quincy, I'm his eldest son. And he said, no matter what, he's our father. He said he's a changed man, and we've seen him evolved. He's completely transformed. Justin introduces himself, and he says that he's his firstborn. And he said, please give my father a second chance of life and a second chance for him to be a father to us. And he said that this has been the hardest time of his life. This whole thing has changed his life, has changed his father's life for the better, though. And he said, as crazy as it sounds, he has so much more to give to the world. Christian approaches the podium, and he says that he's his third son. And he says, people say I most resemble him. And he said, my whole life I studied him up and down. He said, he's my superhero. He said, he taught me to treat women with respect. Now, this was the thing, okay? All of that is true. You could see the dynamic between Diddy and his son. His son idolizes him, okay? We've all seen it, right? I don't doubt that he has told his sons to treat women a certain, positively. I don't doubt that. One of the reasons why I don't doubt it is because when Cassie gave her testimony, she talked about him not wanting to see her harmed. Okay. So she actually had to go. Remember, one of the times she had to go to a hotel and hide out so the family didn't see what she looked like. So I don't think he was doing anything crazy in front of them. So him saying that to the judge, people kind of like were looking at each other like, okay, but I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Okay. He said that he watched him treat his mom with respect. And over the past year, he's had to travel across the country just to see his dad for 2 hours. He said he's changed. He's more relaxed. He's a better man. I see in his life as his twin, the change in him. So basically that's self-explanatory. Okay. But I thought that was like very impactful, because if anyone knows Diddy, it's him. Okay. Diddy addition to substances was a major factor in his abusive behavior. Yes. And you said, oh yeah, I realized he's overprotective. But the substances were a major factor. However, there were reports of him putting his hands on someone he was in a relationship with back when he was at Howard. I don't know if you guys read the Rolling Stone interview. Okay. There were a few people who were interviewed in that same interview that talked about his behavior when he was at Howard. Okay. Now that's another story. Okay. Well, the painting that's there is just a photograph that I put there as a background. So that's just, if you go to Google and type in recent Diddy photo, court artist or something like that, then a bunch of those photos will come up, and then you can just get it from there. But I just put that there as a backdrop so people who come in can see what we're talking about. Was Diddy raised with that? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think that his mom, that I don't think that his mom did anything to him. However, I know that he was an altar boy growing up, right? He was an altar boy. So, we'll take that information and sort of log that away. Okay. So that's that. All right. So he said that, I see in his life as his twin, the change in him. He said, please show him mercy and allow him to be the man he can be. Jessie, who's one of the girls, right? She got up there and she said, I'm 18 years old. My name is Jessie. And she's sobbing almost uncontrollably. And she says, everyone has had opinions on our dad, but he's our dad. And when my mom died, I remember him sitting us down, even though his heart was breaking, he would be there for us. Chance got up and spoke, and she said, I'm the oldest daughter. She's crying. She said, we have emptiness in our lives. We are just his daughters who need our father. He's changed. He's more clear. He discusses his mistakes. I get glimpses of the father he was when we were babies. That broke my heart because, anyway, for obvious reasons, child. She said it's extremely painful for her to see their youngest without their father. Okay. Delilah was the next one who came and spoke, and she's crying, sobbing, 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 barely can talk. And she said, "We're scared to not have our dad in our lives. We're scared for our 2-year-old sister." She said, "These are the years that she'll never get back. I know, because that's how it was when we lost our mom. Please give our family the chance to heal together." And that was the end of that, right? And very, very impactful. And I will say that I do believe that the children's statements had a significant impact on the judge. It did. It did. And as hard nosed as that judge is, he was affected by those children's or those young people's statement. So I could hear it in his voice. He said, "I know it was hard for you guys to come up and speak." He said it must have been so hard for you. He said, "But let me tell you," he said, "I truly, truly appreciate it." He said, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming up and saying what you said." So he basically was, letting them know, "Look, I heard what you said, and I'm definitely keep taking all that into consideration." And I think he absolutely did. Okay. So now they show a video of Diddy, and the video that everybody was talking about, the defense, and honestly, so in the video, it's available there. I'm hearing that Brian Steele actually posted the video on his YouTube. I don't follow him, but in the courthouse, people talk or whatever. And someone said that if you go to Brian Steele's YouTube, then you'll see that he posted it. I think he posted it early in the morning, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, they said. So you can go take a look at it if you want and come back if you want. So in the video, it's Diddy and the kids, and also footage of him, producing and making music and giving speeches, and talking to children, mentoring them. They also showed when he ran the New York City Marathon. And I'm not even going to hold you. I remember when that happened. Diddy has always had, I don't know how many people are watching from New York. You're empathetic for Mr. Combs. He did it. He put his children in this horrible position. I don't know. Anyway, let me not address these things. I'm going to say it one more time. If you're just joining, just watch the video. Okay. So if you see me say something complimentary about something, like, that's not the whole picture. That's just my opinion of something in that moment. So, but it's clear, like, a lot of people just, maybe they tuned in and tune out and just not getting the whole story. But anyway, that situation that happened with the marathon was extremely impressive to me. I work in fitness, right? So I've run marathons myself. I know how challenging it is. I've never run anything more than a 10K. So as you guys already know, the marathon is 26 miles. A 10K is a little over 6 miles, right? So a marathon is 26 miles. So for you to complete something like that is very, very impressive. So I remember when that whole thing happened, and he ran it, and I remember thinking, like, that was very, very impressive. So they showed that part in the video, and there were employees, singing his praises, footage of him and Kim Porter, and also footage of when she passed away. They showed him crying during interviews and him interacting with the kids after she passed away, and so on and so forth. And the video ends with the kids saying that they love him, and also a shot of the youngest one, the baby. Okay. So that was the video. Uh, something else I wanted to say. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sure it'll come back. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. The way they had that video on full blast, the volume of the video was on 173. Okay. And I don't know why it was so loud. We were joking around like, do they want to make sure that everybody's awake for this video? Because the volume was insane. And like the volume was to the point where like people were like this is ridiculous. Okay. But anyway, that was that. All right. So Brian Steele gets up and he speaks. Brian Steele was just blatantly pandering to the judge. Okay, so he comes out the gate swinging with the pandering. He says, "Thank you for allowing me to work in your courtroom in this majestic building." He said, "I stand here with tears in my eyes because I can't believe we're here. How did we get here? We've come to you because we depend on you to fashion a fair statement. Sean Combs is a family man, a religious man. He has unhealed trauma with a ferocious substance habit. He said his father was unalived when he was 3, not far from your courthouse. He was raised in Harlem at a time when it was a very dangerous place. He said at age 12, his mom was working 3 jobs, and then she moved the family to Mount Vernon. Sean and he said this is where he encountered racism for the first time. He said Sean is one of the most intelligent people he's ever met in his whole life. He said that he has an incredible ear for music, and Sean changed fashion in the music industry, and he also made multiple music hits. He said he said that Sean was very anti-substance when he first started out in the industry. That is true. And he said that you know, he ended up having to witness his best friend. He's going through different things that traumatized him. So he had to witness his best friend pass away in a shooting. And also his roommates, that the people he was living with at one point, were actually unalived as well as a result of the, gun violence. Now, the best friend was Biggie. Okay. I got to drag this puzzle piece. The best friend was Biggie. Okay. I know that people have their thoughts on that particular situation. Believe me, none of that is lost on me, and none of the fact that Kim Porter passed away and he was consoling the children. None of that is lost on me either. I'm well aware of the accusations behind the scenes and all of that stuff like that. Okay, so this part here was interesting. Okay. So he says in 2000, he had surgery. And after the surgery, he was prescribed basically opiates. And he became addicted to opiates. Okay. He said that Sean has been under the influence every single day since then. He said that from that, he just never looked back. And he was just never, ever sober a day in his life since then. Okay. He said, I'm glad he's in jail. He needs to be held accountable. Yeah. All right. Let me just read this comment. Deborah says, he seems to have a narcissistic sociopathic disorder. He wears a mask for the public. And he said, yes, narcissistic personalities are rooted in unresolved trauma. Okay. He was also a child of abuse. This is what someone is saying, and Springtime is saying in the comments. Okay. So he did say that even though he had this substance habit, he said that he still never stopped working. And this is the thing that he said that I just don't know why they are continuing to try to lean into discounting the violent behavior and stuff like that. I don't think that it helps anyone. Okay. But anyway, Brian still says he didn't hit Miss Ventura as much as prosecutors said. It was on a limited amount of occasions. Okay. let me say something. Putting your hands on someone one time is too many times. So to say, oh, he didn't, put his hands on her, I don't know, 10 times. He only did it 8 times. What? Once is too much. So I just don't understand why they continue to do that. I feel like it has an adverse effect because I feel like it makes you more focused on that instead of just keeping it a buck and saying yes, this happened, or just don't even bring it up at all in your closing thing. Don't bring it up. Why would you bring that up? But anyway, he said Sean is extremely remorseful about the hotel incident. And then he said that when he's there in MDC, he said, so he's basically talking about the conditions in MDC. And apparently there was a guard or guards who stopped a man with a shank who was about to, harm Diddy in the MDC. He said that he eats chips all day and he lives with about 25 other inmates. He said the bathroom is next to the kitchen. He said there are substances there, but Sean does not take them. I believe that. I believe I believe all of that. Will he be tempted to take them now that he knows he's going up north, or not up north, but that's just a figure of speech. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to be serving his time, but I don't know. Hi, Khalil. Hi. So I don't know, but he's not taking them now. And I don't think that he would have taken them now anyway, because he's trying to get out. So I don't think he would do anything to jeopardize that. Right. You said he's bisexual. I believe that he is. I definitely believe he is. Okay. So he said that there's water. The water must be boiled before drinking it. He said it's dirty. He said he can't believe the position that he's put himself in, especially growing up without a father. And he said he's cursed his children with his name. He said that when he ran the New York City Marathon, after multiple surgeries, he completed it, and he said he raised millions for charity. And he basically said, look, he's not as wealthy as he once was. He said his money is gone. Currently, he's in the middle of hundreds of lawsuits, most of which are frivolous. And he said that some in the media have outcast him and written him off like he is a leper. And he said that Sean has punished himself more than anyone else ever could. He said MDC is built for hopelessness and pain. People go there to unalive, right? Literally and figuratively. And he said, I wrote that Brian Steele once, he wanted a former inmate to call in and give a statement, but that never happened. So he said that October 6th, now this is next week. Remember, he was supposed to be giving us a speaking engagement to, he was supposed to give us a speaking engagement. Okay. Now this is right around the time that the lawyers try to clean up that situation, because remember, we talked earlier about the prosecutor bringing up the fact that there were scheduled speaking engagements for Diddy for next week, or a scheduled speaking engagement. It's like, bro, you don't even know if you're getting out. How are you scheduling something and you don't even know you're getting out or not? Okay. So this is where they try to clean this up. So he said, it's not a speaking engagement. It's a healing opportunity. So apparently he's supposed to be speaking with inmates or whatever, or former inmates or current inmate, whatever, in Miami. But the point is, he would have been available to do this. Okay. If you're not following me, please follow me, and you guys share this video on in real time, please, on YouTube. And follow me on my YouTube. Share it on Facebook. Follow me on my YouTube. It's Shanoa Ken Talk. Okay. And follow me here on TikTok, please. Oh, you said you're absolutely right. His mother has all that money. Could be. Okay. So, all right. Now, he said the only way that Sean can truly get better is at home. He said jail won't rehabilitate him. he says prosecutors say that the sex was coerced and forced, but Cassie agreed to do the first FO because she loved him, and he said Cassie didn't want to say no to the FO because she didn't want to disappoint him, and she enjoyed the time with him after the FO. She did the FOs because she didn't want him to do it with someone else, and she was just in love and wanted to make Sean happy again. I don't know why they continue to bring this up. I don't know why they continue to bring this up. I think that all of that, people already testified to all of that. You know, I think that they should focus on him being, remorseful and stuff like that. But bringing stuff up and trying to downplay what happened is just, I don't know why they continue to do that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. What do I know? So he said this was voluntary behavior with consenting adults. And he said that if he's released, he will never be before this court again. He said Sean Combs is a civil rights leader whose good outweighs the bad. So now Brian still wants to know if there's a reverend who he wants to sort of, get up there and say some positive things and stuff like that. So the judge says, yes, you can. Okay. So he sort of starts out with, he who is without sin, blah, blah, blah. And then he says that he met with his mom, and she said that she prayed for him when she was pregnant. Basically, he was wanted, right? He came into this world, loved and everything like that. And, the mother loved him and stuff like that. And he asked the judge to give him probation. And he said he promises to work with him. He says he'll personally be responsible for him. And he said that he won't let the court down. Okay, so that was basically the gist of what he said. He wasn't up there for long. So now Attorney Donaldson gets up there and he says what he needs to say, and he asks for 14 months. He says the amount of suffering he's seen in MDC is worse than he's seen in 30 years. He says that the government called Diddy a PIMP. He's not. He said PIMP's sole intention is to basically have these women working for profit. And he said before Sean started on substances, he had an idealistic view of the world, and he was clear and focused when, and then he talked about, the change. And he said, when people OD, we call it a tragedy. He said, and he said that, basically the situation that he's in, as far as him, being addicted to substances, is a tragedy. And he said that, when people OD, we call it a tragedy. He said when Whitney Houston OD'd, it was a tragedy. When Prince OD'd, it was a tragedy. The same with Michael Jackson. He said, we know Sean flatlined before, and that was a tragedy. And he did OD before, okay? And it was very, very serious, all right? And it's an old saying, you reap what you sow, absolutely. So he brings up the upcoming speaking engagement. This is another one that tried to clean that up. And he says that, it's not lip service. This is something that he's supposedly doing this to speak to people who were incarcerated, to help them and that sort of thing. And this is what it was about. Again, why do you have that scheduled? You know what I mean? Like he could be doing Toys for Tots. Like, why do you have anything scheduled? You don't know if you're coming out. Trump needs to be on trial. Yes, he does. But that's another story. I don't want to get into that. Okay. It's going to make me upset. But anyway. So he said, we've had lawyers, doctors, etc. at MDC. No one has done what Sean has done there as far as having the free game with Diddy course. He said, so basically, out of everybody, all the prominent people that have gone through MDC's doors, he was the only one. Trump is innocent for sure. Okay, child. Out of everybody who's gone through those doors, Um, no one has done what Diddy has done. No one's no one's done what he's done. And he said that the upcoming event in Miami isn't a speaking engagement, it's a teaching engagement. There should be no engagement. Okay. He says that they reached out to people in Miami because it's a positive thing for him to reach out and set a positive example so others don't end up where he was. And he said that this is something that will help Sean Combs to remain compliant with his release plan. So now they wanted to know if there's a man who has like this organization that helps men who were, you know, incarcerated and stuff like that. And his name is Giovanni Cyrus. Okay. And he's the executive director of Reentry One. And this is a service that has helps a couple of hundred, ex-cons per year to help them not recidivate. And as a former inmate himself, he was very impressed with Sean's work at the MDC, and he said that he's himself has done similar things. And he said when an inmate is able to do what Sean's done behind bars in the face of adversity, it's a testament to how well he'll behave once he's on the outside. C Love says, yeah, how did all these celebrities pass away from ODing that was affiliated with Diddy? A lot have passed away. And then Lawrence said, raise your children like home. Michael, you said that they say stuff like that so the judge looks into it for sentencing guidelines if it applies. I feel like you made that comment a while back, and now I don't remember what it was for, but I'm sure you're right. Okay. Raise your children like homie. Like homie or home? Shocked because I have been blocked from lives. Okay. That man be a wolf in sheep clothing. So he said that the fact that Mr. Combs can put his personal needs to the side and think of others speaks volumes. He said contributing to society has helped him with his own rehabilitation, and those who are closer to the problem are equipped to come up with the solution. And the judge cut him off and said, okay, thank you very much. And everybody started laughing because he had been going for a little while. Okay. So, the judge was just like, okay, thank you very much. And that was that. Okay. Because he said he was only going to be up there for a couple of minutes and it had been a while. Okay. All right. So Mark Agnafilo gets up. So he says back in the day, the only solution for offenders was just throw them in jail and basically forget about them. So basically, he talked about when he was practicing law and stuff like that many years ago, like in the 90s, and how things have changed, and they sort of focus more on, treating the offender and trying to kind of like, get to the root of what is causing the behavior and stuff like that, and try to like rehabilitate the offender as opposed to just throwing them behind bars and just forgetting about them and stuff like that. Right. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you. Okay. And he said that Sean Combs suffers from PTSD, and he's suffered through trauma, including his father passing away, from unaliving when he was 3 years old. He said when he attended Howard, he used microfilm because he wasn't told the truth about his father. So basically, when he went to Howard, he went to microfilm. When you remember microfilm, I'm showing my age now. With microfilm, you can go and research certain things and stuff like that. So that's what he did. He went and he saw an old article of his father. Wasn't discussed today, but this was discussed today, but I knew about this from before because remember he made that commencement speech at Howard and he talked about, I'm lagging, I'm sorry. He talked about, him finding out what really happened to his father, and his father was unalived and stuff like that. Yeah, I used to microfilm the news articles. That is going back. Now you could just type it up, Google it or whatever, and those things come up. But back in the day, you have to go to the specific room and do all of that. So he said that Mark Agnifilo says, they eventually worked on treating people and trying to find out why they offended. And they talked about the raid at his homes and the fact that some of the children who spoke earlier were actually held at, you know, gunpoint, right, during those raids. He says that his businesses are ruined and the case was devastatingly damaging. And he said that he doesn't need more than 14 months' time. He said DV programs are needed for him. Substance program is needed. He said, substance testing will happen. Okay. Um, so now that was the end of that. That was the end of the defense. So remember earlier, Slavic said, look, once they're done with their stuff, is it possible for, me to get up and basically rip everything apart that they said? And the judge said, yes, you can come up and address the court. So now the defense is finished, okay, with the exception of Diddy. And now Slavic is talking, and she talks about previously discussed cases that included prior criminal conduct. And she said that the defense did what he did knowing it was wrong and did it for 15 years. And she said that PIMPs exploit victims. And she said that money was involved, but in a different way. Okay, so this was the thing that I thought was kind of like not smart about what the prosecution was doing. Okay, we know that he was trafficking these people across lines. Okay, but to try to equate it with him being like a PIMP per se, like in this regard, as far as money is concerned, was I didn't think that that was a good idea. I'm not saying that he didn't traffic. What I'm saying is that, Diddy didn't profit from it. You understand what I'm saying? So to try to bring up money in any type of context here, to me, wasn't really necessary. That's just my opinion. Okay, but she said that it was involved, but in a different way. Okay, and she talked about there being over $1 million spent for FOs, probably more than that. And there were, so that was what she said. Okay, and she also said that there were multiple verbal abuse texts that were entered into trial. She said that there were voice notes that showed who he really was when he didn't know that people were listening. And she talked about you said he did profit from his time. How did he profit from his time when he was doing it? Now, he did conduct business during these FOs, right? There were people who testified that he would still continue to conduct business while he was doing these FOs. And I'm not making any excuses for him. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not doing that. I'm just saying I didn't think it was wise for them to bring that up in that context. Okay. So they said that after the apology video, he continued to do the same things despite what he says today. Okay. And she just kept saying that he's not truly sorry. And they read excerpts. This is nothing to do with black or white people. This is always used for one person. Okay. So she reads an excerpt of Cassie's letter, and basically in this particular part, this is when Cassie writes about spending the past 7 years trying to recover, and she's still suffering from nightmares and flashbacks and almost unalived herself. We know that Cassie was in all types of different types of therapy and stuff like that. Lots of stuff I'd never heard of before. Some of it experimental, new age type of situations that she was in to recover from the trauma she experienced. And she, testified that, when whatever this was, a few months back, that she's still currently, basically suffering, and she's still on medication. She's still on different various medications to help her cope with all of this. Okay. So the Slavic asks the judge to impose a significant sentence. So now the judge tells Diddy that he can speak now. And Brian Steele says, can we have a comfort break? So the judge says yes. Okay. It says some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. I don't know what those comments were. I wish they wouldn't filter out any comments because I definitely want to hear what everyone has to say. I want to read what everyone has to say. So if I didn't respond, it, like I said, it's saying that some of these comments were filtered. Now don't be weird or trollish, okay? We can have a difference of opinion, but don't come in here doing weird foolishness. Um, okay? All right. Also, if you're not following me, please follow me. Thank you. So this is the time they had a little bit of a break. So, it was so weird because there was such a high level of anxiety in the courtroom in this moment because, everybody was waiting for this all day. This thing started at 10 o'clock and it's now like 4 o'clock or something like that. Right. So we had a break where we went outside and had lunch and did all kinds of stuff. And it was like a full court day all over again. So we're on this break and people are, sort of just milling about and, what do you think he's going to say and stuff like that. And, I was observing Diddy. He left briefly and then came back and he had his papers. He's getting everything together and he's, trying to, I guess, gather his thoughts. And, he did seem like he was a little apprehensive, but for the most part, he, um, looked like he, had it under control. Okay. So the break was about 10 minutes long and he comes back and he addresses the court and he thanks the court for the opportunity to speak. And he said the hardest thing for him to do was to stay quiet and not be allowed to apologize. Okay. And he apologized to Cassie, and I put in parentheses again because remember he apologized to her during that video, which I thought was a horrible idea. But at any rate, he apologized. This one definitely seemed more sincere than that one. That one he was in the throes of substance abuse, but this one he seemed very, very clear, and he was very direct and very purposeful with the way he was speaking. Okay. And he apologized to her and her family. He apologized to Jane and he said, I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to bring you into my mess. This is what he said. And then he apologized to the victims of DV around the world. And he said the video was disgusting and he knows that it triggered survivors of DV. He said that he needed help and he never got it. He said, I'm not making excuses. He said his mom raised him better. He got lost in life. And he said he's not larger than life. He got lost in excess and his own ego. And he said that he lost his freedom and lost his ability to be there for his mom and kids and family. Most of all, he said he lost his self-respect. He said he's humble to his core. And he said, I hate myself. He said, I'm truly sorry. He said, no matter what they say. And he kind of like looked like gestured over to the prosecution's area. And because remember, the Slavic said multiple times that he's not really sorry. So he was just like, I don't care what they say. I really, really am sorry. And he apologized to his kids and he turned around. Ugh, this part was terrible. Turned around to his mom and, he looks at her and then he, starts to cry. And he's like, you raised me better. I felt bad for the mom. I'm not even going to hold you. Anyway, child. So that was a very, very emotional moment there. And he said that you raised me better. And of course, the kids are crying, stuff like that too in that moment. There were so many people in the courtroom who were crying, sobbing, audibly sobbing, that the court officer had to come and distribute tissues to the people in the in the courtroom, in the gallery there. Okay. Is he still paying 50 cent baby mother rent? I would assume so. Remind me about that in a minute though. Okay. I'm sure her rent is paid for this month though. Okay. Um, so yeah, so she came around and she had to hand out, there were people like really, really, really sobbing in that courtroom. I told you there were so many supporters there. I don't think that that's the consensus, like just in general with everyone, but at the courthouse, he had a ton of supporters there. Okay. Um, he said that his mission was to help the community, and he apologized to the community. And he said, if given the chance, people can change. And he said, certain events can change you for the better. He said he can't change the past, but he can change the future. And he asked the judge for mercy. He basically begged the judge, please show mercy. He said he wants the opportunity to be a better father for his kids. And he said that he's scared. Um, he said his kids are scared. And he said he's scared. He says he knows he'll never put his hands on anyone ever again. He said sharing his story isn't a scheme to get less time. He said this is real for him. He said he wants the opportunity to help others not go through what he's going through. And he said he thanks the jury for the partial acquittal. He said he doesn't take his Mann Act convictions for granted. And he said if he is given a second chance, he won't let the court down. He said, I will never jeopardize being in that situation again, no matter what anyone says. I know I'm truly sorry for what I've done. So that was his statement. But we're all to remember he was high for 25 years. He'll need a lot of therapy. Said, yeah, right. If he didn't get caught, he'd still be violent. You're a very respectful person and know your stuff. Oh, thank you, Benjamin. It's sad that he did this to his own kids because they had a relationship with Cassie. That, yeah. So that was that. Now, Judge Supermanian went for a little bit, and I guess he went into his chambers and just sort of I guess conferred with his staff and maybe other lawyers and maybe some interns that are there, or however it goes. And he came back. I truly thought that this was going to carry over into Monday, and it could have. If Mia was allowed to give her statement, and like there were a couple of other victim impact statements, it would have definitely carried over into Monday. Okay. So you said all about me, what they give him. So, all right. So let me go ahead and read what Judge Supermanian said. So he said, from the outset, I'm sentencing you for these charges, not for what you haven't been convicted of. He said that the court is required to consider the nature of events. He said, I do agree that you've had an impact on the community. And he said, that's impressive. He said that the free game course is impressive. He said, you're devoted to your family. And he said that, the court is considering all the collateral impact on your incarceration. Okay. And I told you, when he was listening to after he listened to the children or, his kids give the statement, he was very, very moved by that. I know he was moved by that. Okay. And I believe that he took that into consideration and actually gave him less time because of that. I do believe that. I really, really do. I think that he had every intention of giving him more time before he went into that courtroom today. I wholeheartedly believe that. He said that the court, so he sang his praises about, the positive impact that he had on people and the fact that he was an entrepreneur. And he talked about the positive impact that he had on, people of color and, minorities and stuff like that. And he spoke about that. But then he said that, however, okay, and it's funny because Jennifer, you said you think he hates Diddy. When he was singing all those praises, right? I kind of like looked at the lady next to me, and I said, it sounded like he's setting him up for the okie doke. Like, It was definitely giving, you know, when you have that sandwich thing that you're supposed to do when you criticize somebody, you tell them something nice, and then you know, let them have it in the middle, and at the end you know, do whatever. That's what it was giving when I heard him say that. Okay. And then when he said however, I said, up, it's coming. So he said the court rejects the notion of your lifestyle being like, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like what the defense was trying to make it seem like they were just leading this, you know, lifestyle. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody was just, you know, he said that the court rejects that. He said, you ABUSED, right? Women you claim to be in love with, okay? And you know, harmed them emotionally and mentally as well. Okay. He said the evidence of the FOs was massive. He said, I was here and I saw the gashes, the bruises, the marks. He said the broken doors. And he heard when Cassie and Jane testified to them wanting to unalive themselves. He said the sentence must reflect the seriousness of events. He said the effects of these events, that the victims are still struggling with the effects of the events to this day. He said this happened so long because you had the resources for for this to happen for so long. He said you were no John, right? He said um you basically said that you need to be given a significant sentence. He said, even after Cassie's civil trial, he said, after the raids on your home, after him being aware that the feds were actively investigating him, he said, after all of this, you still told Jane during a hotel night to, I can't even say this on the live, but he basically went into when he told Jane, um after they had a physical altercation, when he had a physical altercation, right? And he told Jane, after she was already, you know, hit on, to take this pill, perform fellatio on such and such, okay? And he said that this was after all of that stuff. This was how he was behaving. Julie, you said build, break, and then build him up again. Yeah. Okay. He said the court is not convinced that if released, you wouldn't do it again. He said a substantial sentence must be given to show that, you know, abuse against women will not be tolerated. Now, he went into a very technical, you know, reason as to why 11 years is too much. And he cited different things that I'm not familiar with. And like I've said before, I'm not going to try to, you know, talk about something that I'm not versed in, that doesn't make sense. So, but the gist of what he was doing was citing different statutes and things like that that showed that 11 years would have been too much, and he said it was not reasonable. And he said that something like that would typically involve, at the very least, prior criminal behavior and something else, like maybe an unaliving or something like that. 11 years, yeah. Okay. He said that that would typically involve that. So he said he, you know, basically he was not going to be giving him 11 years. And he said that the court does take into consideration mental health of the defendant, um, and obviously mitigating factors, you know, and also his lack of criminal history and any, you know, convictions or anything like that. Okay. And he also talked about the substance abuse and things like that. And he again went into, you know, the government recommendation being too much, but he also said that the defense recommendation was not enough time. He said 14 months, basically, no. Okay. So ultimately, he said that he was going. He said, I'm going to sentence you to 50 months in, in lockup. And he said, and basically that's 4 years and 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. He gave him a fine of 500K. And what I wasn't clear on was the 500K for each count, or was it for both counts? And they talked about forfeiture of property. Now, this is the part I'm not quite clear on. Okay, maybe I'll come back and do another video tomorrow evening when I'm more clear on exactly what is going to happen with the forfeiture. I think what may happen, is my cat. I keep this on me when he acts up. I think what may happen is properties that were like where he committed any type of these acts or something like that may be forfeited. I'm not sure. Okay, so but I'm going to look into that so I can be clear on that. But again, as it stands, 500K. Again, I'm not sure if it's for each count or if that's for both counts. There was also a $100 fine for something, and the the prosecutor, interjected and told the judge that it's supposed to be $200 because there were two convictions. This is the reason why I'm not sure if that 500K is for just one or for two. Okay. He said that you have the right to appeal the sentence in 14 days. And in this moment, when he had said so much stuff that preceded the actual sentence, that by the time he imposed the sentence, no one was surprised. Like, we knew something was coming. There was no audible gasp. I was looking at the monitor. There was no audible gasp really in the courtroom that I was in. And everybody who I was looking right at Diddy and everybody, his family and everybody, they just kind of sat there stoic, like, okay. And he just seemed like he was just thinking, hey, all right, so this is what's happened, and and that was that. You know what I mean? So it was interesting. So now the judge says, I want to speak to the strong women that have come forward. And he said that this was not a great modern love story. And actually, this is what he started to quote the women that came forward. So remember, in Cassie's statement, she said this was not a great modern love story. Okay. And he quoted a couple of other things that she said in her statement. And he told Diddy, he said, you will always be associated with this. He said that the victims spoke for the powerless, and he said it's not easy. And he basically commended them for coming in to testify. And he said that, physical abuse behind closed doors doesn't have to be silent forever. He said, even if you were, a victim, you don't always have to be. And he said, Mr. Combs, I know you feel like you're in a dark space right now, but you abused women who were dependent on you. He said, now this is when he sort of kind of like, I guess, tried to, fix it up, not fix it up, but like, this is the bottom part of the sandwich. He said, you're going to get through this. And then he references letters that the children wrote to the court. Okay. He said the same power that you used to hurt those women can be used to help them. Okay. And the judge, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm assuming that you meant who said what I just said just now. That was the judge. So we're coming up on the end of the judge's ruling. Okay. So he quoted multiple paragraphs of all of the letters that his children submitted. He quoted something from each one of the letters that every one of his children submitted. And he talked about the relationship that he had with his children and about how it's commendable. And he was very, for lack of a better word, impressed by the amount of love that his kids have for him. And it was a testament to the fact that he was a good father to them. He, are you allowed to audio record, or do you have to take copious notes? If you had to take notes, that, yeah, I had to take notes. There's no, now, there are certain news outlets that are allowed to have their devices in the courtroom, but we're like regular people are not allowed. And even some new, some people who are with the press can't either. Um, Obviously, Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press, he's allowed to have his phone there because, you see he live tweets, right? So he's allowed to have his thing. Some people, like maybe from ABC, CNN, those people can, have things, have stuff. But regular people in the gallery, no. This is everything is I did today is from my book, my notebook that I have. This is actually throughout the course of this trial. I've used about maybe, I want to say 3 of these throughout the course of this trial, and this one is about halfway finished. So I'm holding on to this because I'm going to be using this for the Luigi trial. And then Jennifer, you said, what else? No, that's it. That's pretty much the end. That was the end of it. Um, you know, Afterwards, everyone stood up and he, sort of, looked at his family, and, they were all milling about, talking and stuff like that. And then that was the end of it. You're very welcome. I Oh, you said you had an experience only once in the Diddy trial. Um, so um he said she no one can write. Yeah, so that was it. That was basically it. I definitely enjoyed, covering this. I really, really did. I'm looking forward to the Luigi trial. That's the next hearing is December 4th. I had to go in and put in to get my date off for that day because I'm actually scheduled to work at the time. So I'm definitely going to take off that day and I'll be there. I'll definitely be there for that. Looking forward to that. So if you're not following me here, please follow me here on TikTok, and you guys make sure you share this. He said, such a shame he got such little time. Is he still? Oh, so somebody said, is he still paying rent? So the reason I think that he's still paying her rent right as of this moment is because, remember, we just had the trial, right? And they asked during the trial, or they asked her if he's still paying her rent, and she said yes. The reason why I believe that he was still paying her rent was for several reasons. I think that he understood that it would be a terrible look to stop paying her rent because it would feed into the narrative that the prosecution was painting that this was a transactional relationship. Okay. The defense was basically trying to say that they were in this consensual, love affair relationship. And why would you stop paying rent for somebody who you truly were in love with? So, no, I did not think that he was going to stop paying her rent. And everybody was surprised during the trial when she admitted that he was still paying it. And it's just like, why would you be surprised at that? Of course, he's still going to be paying her rent. Now, next month is another story. Will he be paying her rent next month? I don't know. He's going to be gone for a few years. So, and he's, in the middle of a ton of lawsuits. Some, in my opinion, are valid. And I do think that there are some that probably are not. Anytime you have the opportunity for somebody to make a lot of money, you're going to have bad actors, period. Okay, that's just a fact. Um, you know, so regardless whether all of the civil cases against him are, valid, or they're not, or half, or whatever aren't, or most of them are, or whatever it is, he's still going to have to pay for legal representation, and that's going to take a huge chunk of his money. You understand what I'm saying? So is he going to be just continuing to fund her lifestyle? You know, I don't know. I don't know if he'll I don't know. Like I said, I believe her rent was paid for the month of you know, for the month of October, but for the month of November, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. I'm sure that's why he brought it up today. He's about to stop now that I know it's hurting her. Could, yeah, could be. You understand what I'm saying? Um, you know, so that's that. So it's 11:15. How long have I been on here? Oh my God, an hour and 45 minutes. But I knew it was going to be long because it was a very long hearing. You understand what I'm saying? And I really wanted to just go over everything thoroughly, not just like the little, you know, blurbs and little sound bites that you see on the blogs and stuff like that. I really wanted to give everybody a real thorough, like, feeling of what happened, like what it was like. I'm probably going to discuss this a little bit more over the course of the next couple of days. For sure, they will be, you said he'll be out next year and you'll be celebrating. He should get away with for what he's done to people. He deserved more. No justice for victims. Um, so what I'm interested in is now that the trial is over, everything is over. You said, oh, them attorneys paid up front. So I was at work waiting all day for your live. So thank you so much, Julie. What I want to know is the first juror that's going to be interviewed. I want to see what, like, they were thinking of when they were deliberating. Any word where Diddy? Oh, so they're gonna talk about that on Monday. The Mark Agnafilo is gonna. They're gonna. I guess they are gonna find all that out on Monday. I think the judge got some money too. Anything is possible, but I don't think that in this particular case. I don't think he got any money. I don't think he got any money. Um, he'll get time served, and he may get 2 years to 1 year. Well, this is the thing. I'm just going to say this one time and I'm going to leave. So he was sentenced to 50 months. He's going to get time served. He's served 13 months already. Okay. And then I think that they're going to take off 15% off of what's left. The judge gave him more mercy than he gave his victims and his kids. So they're going to take a little bit of a time off or whatever. So that's the situation there. Now, as far as the facility, I'm told that federal time is different to state time. Is that true? I don't know. Michael, are you still here? Is that time different? I've heard like it's a little bit better than, a state jail. I don't know. If the judge got money, the time should be less, or he should walk free already. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think that he would pay the judge to still throw him behind bars for a few years, or two years or something, or 3 years or whatever it's going to end up being. So you said it's different. Okay. So look, one thing for sure, they're going to appeal this. Like first thing Monday morning, that appeal is going in. So we'll definitely be back at that courthouse for the appeal. Okay. And you said he's going to do most of that time. Okay. But they're definitely going to appeal this for sure. 1000%. And that woman, Alexandra Shapiro, the appellate lawyer, she's like one of the top in the country. Everybody was kind of talking about her when she first was hired, onto the team, about her. She is like apparently really, really, really good. So we'll see what happens with that appeal. But regardless, he's going to have to spend some time behind bars, though. Definitely going to spend some time there. Okay. So once again, give me a follow. I want to see. I feel like if he wasn't rich, they would have thrown away the key. Look, here's the thing, Lavelle, right? When you have the coin, you can afford good legal representation. And, for all the missteps that the defense made throughout this, and there were a tremendous amount of missteps on both sides, in my opinion, they still were able to, facilitate a decent outcome for him. When this whole first thing happened, right? Look how everybody was thinking he was going away forever. Okay. They did not think that he was going to, because remember that RICO while a lot of people do feel as though it was, weak, in the beginning, there were a lot of people who were thinking like it's so broad, like there's a good chance that he's going to be found guilty on that, and he wasn't. They did what they had to do, and they got him off on that. That would have come with a mandatory forever in prison, right? It would have been forever. Okay, yeah, the defense earned their coin once that RICO got tossed out, and that's when I had spoken to. There's a video on my TikTok where I was speaking to the lawyer, the black gentleman. I forgot what his name. It was his name, and I told him, I said, "You got to be feeling like $1,000,000. You got to be feeling like $1,000,000 because they really, really were able to accomplish something that, I didn't think that they were going to be able to accomplish that. I really, really did not. Okay, so." So yeah, and if you are spending that amount of money, you better get some decent legal representation. You know what I mean? You said you had him blushing. I didn't see a RICO, but the 2 counts I saw it. Yes. Um, so that's it. Look, it's 11:30. I'm exhausted. I'm hoping that we get some interviews with the jurors now that the case is over. That's what I'm going to be looking for. That's what I'm going to be looking at. I want to know what, because remember, and I'm going to say this really quickly before I leave. Remember when the jurors went to deliberate and they were deadlocked on the RICO, and they were just like, look, basically we're hopelessly deadlocked. No one's budging, and blah, blah, blah. And the Judge Supermanian was like, nope, y'all got to get back in there and continue to deliberate. And they said, okay, can we come back tomorrow? And then the judge said, sure. And they came back, and whatever happened between 9 and 10:30, I don't know what, but they came back with an acquitted him of the RICO. So what I want to know was how many people were for it initially and how many were against. You know what I'm saying? Like, and what specific, I want to know what their frame of mind was during the deliberation process. That's what I really, 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 really want to know. I think they were scared of him. Maybe none will do an interview. Well, this is the thing. Well, you could be right though. I think maybe, but listen. I don't know about. No, I think there'll at least be one that gives an interview. You know what I mean? But you could be right though. Maybe they'll be too scared to do anything, to say anything at all. Could be. So. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for staying with me. Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time. Definitely, you said there's always one. Yeah, there's gonna be one. Listen to me. You know how much these outlets are gonna be paying for an interview with them? You understand what I'm saying? And I think that probably somebody, at least one of them, will want to write, some type of a publication detailing or documenting their experience, right? For sure. Some type of a book deal, for sure. You know what I mean? As they should. I mean, look, this was the trial of the century, for lack of a better, lack of for better or words or whatever, however you say it. Like, this was definitely. I remember when I found out that he first got into trouble, I immediately said that I was going to go to the courthouse. And my daughter was like, why you want to go there? I was like, what? Of course I'm going to go. Like, bad boy Diddy. I got, of course, this is part of, this was part of the 90s. Come on. So I definitely knew I was going to go. You said Trump is next. Listen, like I said, I'm not going to get started on that. We living in some crazy times. We really, really are. So, but anyway, again, thank you so much. If you're not following me here on, victims. No. Oh, this is one more thing I want to say. I thank you for asking if any of the victims were in court. Listen, you remember Gina Hune, however you pronounce her name, the girl who what Tasha K interviewed her, and she said she testified, not testified, but during the interview, she said that he, harmed her, in terrible ways, and she was pregnant, and he, you know, basically stomped her and did all kinds of crazy stuff to her, and she was afraid of him. And do you remember her? She was there today at the courthouse. When she came out of the courthouse, she was standing there. She was unrecognizable. If you go look at how she looks, she's very, very attractive. And I'm not saying that she's not an attractive young lady. I'm not saying that. But she does not look how she looks on photos and stuff like that at all. She was standing there in front of the courthouse waiting to go into like a Sprinter van or one of those things or whatever, right? Like either a Sprinter van or a Suburban or one of those vehicles. And I knew she was somebody because she was standing there waiting to be escorted into the thing. When she walked, there was a reporter that was there from whatever news outlet, and she said, "Oh, that's victim 3." And I looked at her and I said, I knew that girl looked familiar. This girl looked so plain. She had glasses. She was wearing like a sweater, and like she looked like she was mad young, and she did not look anything like how she looks. She looked so unrecognizable. No one tried to take any video of her. No one. Had I known, I would have done my usual thing where I try to get. No one knew who she was. She looked completely different. She didn't really have on makeup like that. It looked like she didn't really have on makeup. You said she was trying to be unnoticed. Maybe. Because she just looked completely different. She looked like just like a plain Asian girl that you would see like on the train. You know what I mean? That's what she looked like. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was so interesting. Okay. So yeah. Remember, she wrote TMZ ran up on her and was asking her if she felt afraid, and she said no, she didn't. And she didn't look like anything like how she looked in that video. But anyway, that clearly was, arranged, prearranged, right? So, and we know that TMZ is essentially in the tank for Diddy. That's obvious, right? So, yeah, I believe she did really love him, though. I do. So yeah, that was interesting. That was really, really interesting. That's the one who disappeared. She was at the court today, looking super plain, real plain. You said, take that to sleep. Take that. Okay. I got to go to sleep. I have to go to sleep. I have lots of stuff to do tomorrow. What do I think of the verdict? Okay, I'll answer this really quickly. I'm going to go. I believe that I'm comfortable with the verdict. I believe that he would have gotten more if his kids didn't give those statements. I believe that he would have gotten more time. But I think that that's enough time for him to really sit and really, when you say think about what he's done, it's so corny, but I mean, he does need to think about what he's done. Okay. My daughter doesn't feel that way. My daughter is a real, she don't play no games. My daughter wanted him to like never see the light of day again. So, are you saying, do I think that he got a fair sentence? Yes. Reflect on his wrongdoing. Yup. You said conveniently she's there now after she was supposed to testify. Transform himself. You said he deserves life. Narcissists don't feel empathy. You're right. You're right. You're right. So, but anyway, I'm about to go to sleep. Okay, guys. So again, thank you so much for being here, and follow me. Follow me here, share my video and stuff like that. The video is going to be up. If you didn't catch a part of it, the video is going to be on my YouTube. My YouTube is Shanoa Can Talk. All right. So please follow me there. My YouTube is tragic. I don't even have 300 subscribers there. I'm trying to get to 1K. It's almost impossible. And you can follow me on my Facebook as well. So it's Shenoa, Chenoa, and my last name, which is Laurencin, Laurencin. So please follow me everywhere, and I will, again, probably either go live tomorrow or the next day. I want to discuss a couple more things in depth, but once I learn about them, and then I'll share it with you. Okay. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you very much. Okay. So I will see you guys next time. All right. Enjoy the evening, and I'll see you soon. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody here on YouTube. I'll see you. I post all the time over here on, not YouTube, on Facebook. And I'm actually on StreamYard. So I'm streaming simultaneously on Facebook and also YouTube. So streaming in both places. So if there's anything that you miss, you could just go to YouTube and see it from the beginning or whatever. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Mwah. I'll see you guys soon.